It was a morning like any other, but history does not announce itself, it unfolds. And on that day, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, soldier of the people, president by destiny, stood before the nation and signed a document that would reshape generations. President Ibrahim Traoré's speech. Today, we return what was always yours. If you have worked the land for 10 years or more, if your sweat fed this soil, then that land is yours by law, by justice, and by dignity. Villagers crowding around radios. Market vendors frozen mid-sale. A widow drops her basket, tears welling in her eyes. The reform declared that all citizens who had cultivated, cared for, or lived on land for at least a decade without violence or dispute would be granted legal ownership, regardless of title, class, or connection. It wasn't just policy. It was poetry. It was a nation finally speaking its own language. Black and white footage of French colonizers marking territory. Men in chains. Women pushed off land. Soldiers drawing borders with guns. To understand the weight of this reform, you must understand the wound. Burkina Faso's land has always been sacred but rarely sovereign. Colonial masters divided it, sold it, claimed it. Post-independence regimes inherited those lines, never questioning who truly belonged. Archival documents showing land leases to foreign corporations. Bulldozers uprooting villages. Foreign companies bought thousands of hectares for pennies. Mining giants swallowed sacred ground. And the people, those who lived and died with the land, were left without names on paper. A farmer speaking softly beside a dying baobab tree. I buried my father here. They told me it was not mine. Now I have proof. Now the tree has a name. Long lines of villagers waiting patiently outside land offices. Mothers with babies. Grandfathers holding dusty maps. Children holding seedling trees. Within days of the reform, the nation awoke. Old men who had never seen a lower walked into government buildings holding nothing but memory. Widows carried faded photographs of husbands who had died defending fields. Young people, once tempted by the cities, returned to villages ready to inherit purpose. They told me I was a guest. I cooked here. I raised my children here. Now I am no longer invisible. Villages broke into song. Towns held festivals. Even in silence, tears spoke where words failed. Children drawing farms on chalkboards, writing, "This is my land." Massive community builds underway. Homes rising. Irrigation systems built from scratch. Solar panels installed. Joyful chaos. Ownership is not just a title, it's a seed. With security came action. With action came development. Across Burkina Faso, land ownership sparked a renaissance. Communities built homes not with charity, but with conviction. Farmers pulled resources for wells, grain storage, and reforestation projects. Widows formed cooperatives. Youth turned barren fields into food forests. Now that the land is ours, we can make it breathe again. In places once plagued by despair, dignity returned. Not imposed from above but grown from the ground. News clips of foreign investors reacting with anger. Leaked emails. Western diplomats issuing warnings. IMF reports. But not everyone celebrated. The powerful do not like to be made powerless. Foreign land cartels who had bought vast plots during past regimes filed lawsuits. International institutions labeled the reform a threat to economic stability. Mining firms warned of investor flight. Aid programs were quietly suspended. We cannot let a populace like Captain Ibrahim Traoré set a precedent. If one African country does this, others will follow. They didn't see land, they saw assets. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré had reminded the world, the soil has soul. Burned fields. A village leader mourns beside ashes. Night footage of armed attacks. Villagers in fear. Soon came the fire, and known militias began targeting communities that had registered land. Farms were set ablaze. Land documents stolen. Activists disappeared. A young farmer testifying before a local court. Farmer, they told me my deed meant nothing. They beat me, but I will plant again. The reform was under siege not only by foreign forces, but by internal cartels threatened by the rise of the people. Yet from the ashes rose something even more powerful. Thousands of women marching peacefully through Ouagadougou, wearing red scarves, singing, holding photos, holding titles. At the front of the resistance stood the women, mothers, grandmothers, widows, survivors. They had tilled the land, fed the villages, buried the dead, and now they stood for their rights. You cannot silence us. We know every root of this land. We are the land. Their symbol, a red scarf, worn for blood, worn for bravery, worn for every woman erased from old laws but reborn in the new one. Local courts filled with barefoot farmers, lawyers drafting defenses under trees, young judges quoting the Constitution. Legal battles erupted. Land cartels dragged villagers to court, hoping to bury them in procedure. But the people came, not with lawyers but with land deeds, memory, and truth. A barefoot farmer in court, holding a hoe and a title, a young lawyer beside him. University students volunteered to represent them. Legal collectives were formed. For the first time, justice spoke in local dialects. One judge's ruling became legendary. The law must honor what the soil remembers. Classrooms across the country. New textbooks titled Our Land, Our Law. Students reading articles from the Constitution. The reform was not just legal. It became cultural. Schools taught children not only history but stewardship. Not only rights but responsibilities. In every village, community halls taught elders to read their titles. Children wrote essays titled What I Will Plant When I Grow Up. Teachers redefined citizenship. To be Burkina is to protect the land. A dusty road. A young man in city clothes steps off a bus. His family waits. He kneels to touch the soil. Then came something unexpected. The diaspora began to return. Young Burkina from the cities, and even abroad, came home, with laptops and solar panels, with farming knowledge and open hearts. Not for survival but for legacy. A family reunited. The mother cries, "Mother, you left for a job. You came back with purpose." African Union Summit. Captain Ibrahim Traoré addresses other heads of state. A quiet tension fills the room. Burkina Faso is not a model, it is a mirror. If we can do this, so can you. The land is not a commodity. It is our beginning and our future. Delegations took notes. Some leaders applauded. Others grew nervous. A new question was rising across the continent. What if the people owned everything they had built? Montage: men building homes, women harvesting, children planting, courts ruling in favor of the poor. Yes, there were tears. Tears from farmers who lived their whole lives without being seen. Tears from mothers who finally had something to pass on. Tears from children who knew their futures were finally theirs to write. President Ibrahim Traoré walking quietly through a field. He kneels, hoops up soil, and lets it fall. In the soil of Burkina Faso now rests a new story. One not written by colonizers, not dictated by financiers, not auctioned to the highest bidder, but written by the people with calloused hands. Red scarves, chalkboards, and tears. A little girl waters a tree beside her house. She looks up at the camera and smiles. The land is home. The law is human. And the future belongs to those who plant it. If this story sparked something in you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories from across the world. Bye, Africa Lights.